Thank you very much. I'm Fabrizio Cannizzo. I'm Chief Architect at IOTICS. We are a small enterprise. We've been on for over 7 years, and our mission and vision is to enable and innovate on how organizations share and exchange data across boundaries, organizational, jurisdictional, legal, geographical. And I personally am very attracted by the idea of helping organizations to redesign their data architectures to enable them to share securely. What I'm going to present today is our vision, how the world is moving on, and how our company like ours can contribute to accelerate that transformation. We're seeing a data economy, a new data economy to form, built on data ecosystems, specifically cooperative data ecosystems, where organizations not only have to come together to solve global problem, but at the same time, they have to obviously carry on competing and pushing for their own individual strategies and goals. We're seeing that in these ecosystems, there have to be built-in trust in building mechanisms, so cooperation can start on a small and ad hoc basis and evolve as much as and as long as the trust evolves along with them. These relationships to form cooperative data ecosystems form primarily, obviously, for profit motivations. But more and more, we are seeing that not only profit is the main driver, but also the need of solve these massive problems. Think about net zero with social responsibility in mind. And obviously, it's all down to the power of data sharing. It's an umbrella expression that I use to identify raw data sharing, information sharing, insights sharing, and across all the various organizations that need to come together. And as you can imagine, there is a variety of types of organizations and data sources, from government, private sectors, academia, down to the single user. Therefore, you can imagine how these boundaries are diverse as well. As I was saying earlier, geographical, legal, and for big organizations, even organizational boundaries that prevent necessarily to share and exchange data. But, each organization comes in with their own piece of the puzzle to provide a contribution to the solution of these big global problems. But this is not a model where everybody has to share everything. There are constraints within that. So selected data sharing, obviously, every organization has to take care about privacy preservation of their own data and share with whom at any point in time where they see fit to the solution any specific use case. Obviously, data sovereignty is important to retain control over each owns data and metadata. So there is always a fine balance between, the balance between cooperative needs, but also compliance with rules, regulations, and internal governance. And ultimately, you can share data, but data needs to be made, how we call, fair, as in the fair data principles. You want to lower the barrier to entry on these cooperative data ecosystems, so data can be found, accessed, can be interoperable, and then ultimately reusable for whatever purpose it's required. It's the concept of evolution of trust. These ecosystems don't come without challenges, obviously, and there are technical challenges and human challenges to address. Evolution of trust is the fact, as I was trying to allude earlier, that you can start small and with a low level of trust, and as long as these relationships carrying on, trust increases, and the value of those relationships increase as well. And I firmly believe that the current technology that we have, carefully crafted, can be deployed to solve not only the technical challenges, things like the separation between business logic and data, make the data fair, tackle the transaction cost, the fact that we're now living on a world of big data, or even the human challenges, cultural alignment, data literacy, the fear of sharing data as well, because we could be weaponized against you. So technology that we have right now can be used to alleviate and implement those challenges. I was saying earlier, interoperability. interoperability is the key to make this succeed. Specifically, autonomous trust and autonomous interoperability. On the right-hand side, you can see here a traditional interoperability stack, and you can recognize technical level of interoperability and organizational level interoperability. And trust has to go across the various layers, not only from trusting in technology, in the processes, but obviously ultimately in the various organizations that have to do business together. Interoperability is the key to success for these ecosystems. And what are the characteristics that any of the technologies that you want to deploy to create cooperative data ecosystem has to have? From my point of view, these are the 6 main points that every technology stack has to implement. So virtualization to decouple access to data sources for the purpose of essentially remove the fear of sharing data. You don't want to grant access directly to your data, but you might want to adopt a virtualization approach to buffer essentially access to the data. Sovereignty to retain control over your own ownership. You don't want to relinquish ownership to your data for the sake of having it to share. Symmetry is the idea of having essentially a level playing field where producers and consumers can have the same rules and regulations to abide. Decentralization, again, plays in with the fact that multiple organizations in diverse across boundaries might have different governance models and frameworks that have to essentially be linked with each other without having a single central place that has to govern everything. Semantics clearly is the fact that for data to be exchanged, semantic interoperability needs to be implemented for machine to machine to work autonomously. And federation is the concept that everybody brings their own piece that is joined up. So each piece is still retain control and ownership, but looks like as if it's part of a single unified model. This model can also expand eventually into a network of networks or ecosystem of ecosystems. And I see these as mimicking our social cultural patterns. So small and trusted communities that are tightly interconnected, then start doing business with each other with a low level of trust. And you can see how parties can move around as they see fit. The concept underlying it is, again, the evolution of trust. As trust evolves, parties and relationships, new relationships form or current relationships strengthen. So this might seem a far-fetched sci-fi concept. Now, we do have right now technology that is ready to be used. Off the back of the 2018 EU strategy for data sharing, organizations like and projects like GaiaX in the EU is promoting this model. International data spaces is trying to standardize on how data ecosystem and data spaces get formed. Another organization, typically in the EU, federated in the Netherlands and data space support center in the Netherlands as well, are looking at how to deploy current technology to implement cooperative data ecosystems. Capgemini is another one, very much Capgemini Invent is promoting the same messages. And obviously in the UK, the DT Hub or the Digital Twin Consortium in the UK, in the context of digital twin platforms and interoperability across them. And obviously in the small, in the kind of private sector, IOTICS is leading with this technology. So I want to conclude. Data economies are formed to address problems at a global scale in a competitive environment. Data ecosystems are those environments where organizations can join together to cooperate by sharing and exchanging data. Human and technology challenges exist. It's not easy to get there, but we do have the technology right now that can be engineered and carefully crafted to solve these challenges and support the evolution of trust. So hopefully my message has been clear. We can do these things right now, and we're ready to help you out with your challenges.
Question for Fabrizio for yourself. is one of the frustrating things with AI models is that the IP on the data ecosystem sits with the developer. This means siloing data which can be federated. Is there a global mechanism to collate the data without losing IP for developers? If you're responding there, Fabrizio, we can't hear you because you're on mute.
Sorry. There are various patterns in which organizations and or systems at the kind of implementation level can cooperate and exchange data. As I was saying earlier, you can share raw data, you can share information as in process data or insights, contextualized data. Or you can implement patterns like compute to data, where in case you don't want to or you're not prepared to share any of your internal data, what you can do is embed algorithms within your data infrastructure, and then out of those algorithms you share out models, the results of those algorithms. So it's all about identifying what constraints do you have, especially in your case retaining IP, and essentially adopt the right technology that already exists to overcome those problems.
Fabrizio, are there any existing standards for autonomous interoperability in other sectors, for example, banking, healthcare, etc.?
Yeah, there are standards. Open banking, for example, HL7 in healthcare, and we at IOTICS have also contributed to create ecosystems that are starting developing standards, especially in the defense and utility businesses. I don't necessarily believe on the creation of a standard that will govern any ecosystem. Mostly, you'll see that some of these standards and processes will emerge organically to form. Standards will exist, but in many cases where, for example, you want to interoperate across those standards, ad hoc integrations and implementation will emerge.